Is there any conflict? Because you all come in with, you know, demos and pieces of songs and everything, and you've obviously got, you know, something in your mind that the way you want that song to sound. So is there ever conflict where you feel like it's your song and you want it to go in a certain direction or sound a certain way? How do you, you know, find a happy medium to balance that?
That's it. Find the happy medium. You know, it's like,
Sorry?
yeah,
Pick your fights.
and pick your fights. You know.
But you know what I mean? A song is, you know, it's like, it's a baby. It's like part of you. It's come out of you. It's come from nothing, you know. It's something that's you've created, and it's kind of your baby. It's like if I shape a surfboard, I don't want anyone else with it and touching it. It's my thing. And I always imagined a song would feel like that it would feel like really personal. It was something that you'd created, and that you would be very hardcore about what you wanted people doing to it, you know, subtracting or adding to it.
I think there's a lot of trust that goes into it, and trusting his and other people's instinct, and then kind of knowing in the end if it's Mike's song or if it's Stone's, you know, if it's their song. I think there's a little bit of veto power that whoever wrote it gets like a little bit more say on that. And if they feel like they need to protect an element of it, after we've experimented a few times, and then after you've tried it, then you can say, okay, we were team players, we tried things. Can I get that back in there? I just need to have that part back in there. And pretty much that's how it worked. And again, picking your battles or knowing what's really important to you. And you know, most songs, especially, you know, the way we work, it's not always this bolt of lightning kind of, you know, came from the heavens that you know, you wouldn't want any. There's a purity that you don't want to taint in any kind of way or be overly conscious or have it be dissected and split up. So usually you're kind of willing to see what everybody else has taken it, or I've been convinced many a time to either double the chorus or add a chorus, and you know, they're giving me confidence that the chorus is better than I thought.
It's a collaborative band, so it's not just, none of us individually can just do a song and say this is a Pearl Jam song without kind of all of us kind of getting an opportunity to kind of interact with it. So I think for everyone's baby, I think there's a good chance it's gonna lose an arm, but hopefully it'll still be alive.
For me, there's some no-brainers on the new album that I think would be insane live. Like, which ones instantly come to mind that would be good in a live situation?
I keep going back to Father Son. I just think that song had just an amazing sort of discovery, I think, with Jeff's music. And then just as soon as we kind of heard the cadence of how Ed was sort of singing over the top of that and the sort of machine gun sort of fire of that and how he was sort of pulling against that main track, there's a simplicity to it. It's got this cool, interesting sort of odd-shaped bridge that just comes and goes, and it's just really got something special, and it really came together very, very quickly, and it seems like it's going to be a pretty powerful song.
Sonically, too, that song is, because there's two basses, and the guitar is sort of atmospheric.
Yeah, it's
guitar,
all
so
high.
There's not really like any power chords in the song, which is pretty unique. Like, and I didn't really hear that part of it until a couple weeks ago. I was like, oh, that's what's...
Yeah, even in the chorus, I still play it just like a two-note thing, so it's like all that, you can hear all that texture of the bass. It's just very cool.
I think I'm hearing like Lightning Bolt being a bit one that's going to be, you can hear the crowd just gravitate towards that and the dynamics of it and where it goes down and goes up and it kind of comes out at the end, and it's one of those Pearl Jam things that people are going to really resonate towards, I think. And I know I will live, for sure. I can feel it just from listening to it.
Running in circles.
I'll be running around during that one. Yeah.
Is there one that stands out for you, Matt?
I agree with Mike. I think that's going to be the kind of classic PJ live track, you know. People are going to be singing. Kind of starts quiet, raises up. I think Mind Your Manners will be fun to play live.
If I can keep up with him, it's going to be fun.
Double time in that thing.
Do you play bass on that song?
When I look back on the surfing career and events and performances and the surfboard shaping career, I still get really pissed off and critical of some of the things I did during the career. Is there a PJ album where you feel like you got everything right on it?
And probably more so in like this like Vitalogy No Code era. Like I wished I had more time with those songs. You know what I mean? Like I wish I had more time with those songs. I mean, a lot of those records were somebody, you know, Ed would show us a song and he'd play it twice, and that was sort of what ended up going out there. And luckily, you get to play those songs live, and there's lots of pretty good versions of those songs live.
You can kind of fix your part live if it's you know, pretty subtle. There's things you can do to be better for some of those old songs where somebody wouldn't necessarily pick up on it, but it's probably about leaving more space, or those songs came pretty quick, so you didn't have a lot of time to kind of really hear what was going on. You were flying by the seat of your pants, so you know those songs now and can be better for them. And I don't think we've made a perfect Pearl Jam record. I don't think there's one record that was like, oh, this is, you know, there's not a moment that couldn't be better, you know.
But I think that really is the exercise. It's really an exercise in like having no regrets. You know, that's something, you know, about the recorded version of the songs as opposed to playing them live. It's just really, really staying in the moment and doing everything you can just to not have regrets and not to, like, you know, wake up in the middle of the night and feel the need to punch yourself. Or you know, or just an early onset of Tourette's or something, based on a bridge.
Yeah.
Or tempo or something.
Sometimes I hear things from fans like about No Code that this is my absolutely favorite record for all times. Right, and it was not. That was not the case for me on that record. But that gives me. It makes me excited that I can now look at it a different way, because it means something to you, or to my friend Chris Adams, and because it meant so much to them, and then maybe I missed it. You know, maybe I missed what was there, and it makes me go back and check it out again.
Right. And it's cool because it's like I mean, No Code almost, it kind of came out as a little bit of a misfit, you know, to start out with. I mean, I think as people's perceptions of it, or at least our perceptions of people's perceptions, is like a little bit of misfit. But it's cool that those misfits can really gather. They have their own character that ultimately can, you know,
can mean something.
Yeah,
you know, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
ultimately.
For me, No Code is just phenomenal. It's just, it's unbelievable.
And I think I like that record because Present Tense and In My Tree are two of my favorite lyrics. I mean, I love those lyrics in both those songs. Like,
that was the beginning of when I decided to write from like complete isolation. It's a lot harder to do with kids. You know, and you write quicker with kids, you know. People say, like, how does having kids change your writing? You see the world through their eyes and all. And like, no, you just become faster songwriter. Because, you know, in the old days, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to work on this song for a few days. I'm just going to procrastinate me a few lyrics or procrastinate me a bridge. And now it's, like, very, like, okay, they're down, hour. Okay, 1 hour. Bam. You know, really, you're not really allowed that mad scientist in the isolated laboratory kind of insanity, which I used to really enjoy.
Well, maybe that's the record that's the next shift for us is, you know, we've made some records that are pretty focused and, you know, everything counts and means something, and maybe we need to, you know, maybe there's another No Code in us in terms of one that's more relaxed in terms of like we don't know what it is, and we're going to take a bunch of chances, and they may not sound great to start out with, but 10 years from now people will.
Played on Garbo cans.
Yeah, played on Garbo cans.
Which, are they reclusive?
Sorry?
Garbo cans?
Garbo cans? In my eyes, you're one of the only bands that has been together for a long time that hasn't become a shadow of its former self. I think what you're doing now is as good as what you did with the early albums, possibly, if not better than the early albums. And I think that the latest album, only though I've heard it a few times, I think it's going to end up becoming, you know, the top of my favourites or one of my favourite albums. How do you think you've managed to stay like so good and so fresh so far into the career? And is it something, have you consciously thought about that, or is it just something that just happens?
I think a little bit plays into your question before, too. I think by the fact that we don't work so hard all the time, that we work just enough to kind of really keep us excited about what work is, making records and then going and doing some touring and then being able to get into that process with like dreaming about a record, making it, doing the artwork for it, doing some shows, learning those songs, having some of those songs become part of our sort of history and the ones that people love, and we do that in a way that we don't kill ourselves, and we work enough that it really feels like it's not work. It feels like it's still, we're sort of in this dream that we can't, that we can't believe that we're actually able to kind of do what we want to do, and sort of that it's sustaining us, and that it's sustaining our friends and our family, that, and the people that work here. And so I think by not killing ourselves every time we do it, I think that's helped us maintain a certain freshness about it. And then I think just the collaborative process of really being in a collaborative situation with each other, it keeps us humble, and it keeps us fresh, and it makes us understand how teamwork really works. And I think if you're in that state of mind, I think you end up making, it's a helpful part of making good records, to be in it as a process, as opposed to just controlling the whole thing and just, it's all about you. And each of us individually has to give up a lot to be part of this situation, and that's turned out to be a real blessing.
And I think the thing that happened, at least from my perspective with you on this record, is that I think you really created a unique style on this record. I really hear your style come through on this record, probably more than any record in a lot of ways. There's almost every song you hear a Stone part pop out, and you go oh, that's uniquely him. And I think Mike's kind of had that for a while, but because he plays the leads, but so much melodic ear candy on the record, that's what Stone contributed, that I think is part of what gives the record a really unique sound. This record, guitar-wise, is so much more interesting to me than the last record, and a lot of it's because of what you came up with.
For you, if you wrote a lot for this album, for you, what stimulates the creative process?
For me, that stuff happens a lot at museums. If I go see a painting, I walk out of there and I just feel like you witnessed really something that was a lightning bolt. You really, you see this painting that makes you feel a certain way. And I think it's not even being influenced by the painting, it's being influenced by the inspiration behind the painting. You see this thing and you go wow, there's so much energy in that piece of canvas. And so a lot of times I'll leave those situations and I'll have energy for days, where you're like, I got to get to that place. Whatever that place was that he was at, I need to find that, that
So
spot.
does that inspire you to go home and actually pick up an instrument and try and write something?
Sure.
You come out of that charged.
Yeah.
I think movies are big like that for me too. A lot of times, if you come home from a movie and you're kind of wound up, that's a good time to pick up your instrument, But those 10 or 15 minutes you have where you're just all of a sudden you have that moment to kind of pick your instrument up. The garbage is taken out and the recycling is done, and your kids at school, and
You got some clear space.
Yeah, you have that moment and you pick it up, and something either comes or you put it back down. And I think I don't think any of us have really felt like we've ever gone through any sort of lack of creativity in terms of I think that we, at least I always feel like there's always a chance you're going to write a song, and it's not something that's going to go away. It's it feels like it's something that we've identified how to find fun stuff in our guitars that we like, and it's as simple as that. It's just do you like it? Keep following it. Where does it go? Where does that mistake lead you? What is it?
In a lot of bands, the singer can be a control freak. Is that the situation in this band, or are there any control freaks in this band?
I think in the grand scheme of singers, if you look at how much collaboration Ed has done with this band, either singing other people's lyrics or encouraging everyone in the band to write and being open to that, I think he's proven himself to be one of the most collaborative lead singers out there in terms of...
Yeah, it might be unprecedented.
I think so, in terms of given his stature and given his abilities, he certainly could just go make records with whoever he wanted to make records with, but he's always chosen to make records with us. Now, having said that, you know, he's the spiritual leader of this band, and I think his approval of things ultimately is going to usually decide whether they, you know, he's got to get excited about something for there to be a lyric or a melody, and I think by the very nature he does have a lot of control over this situation, but at the same time he's also looking to us constantly to, you know, we're all influencing this process in small ways, but it's not a perfect, completely balanced process, but by no means is it any dictatorship at all.
Okay. Every member of the band is obviously very passionate about a lot of social and environmental causes. How do you figure out which ones you're actually going to support and endorse, and keep it fair within the members that each person has an input into which causes you're actually supporting?
I don't know if we think about it that much. I think individually all of us get touched at certain times by things that we want to get involved with, and I think the band sort of sees your involvement in that thing, and I think we try to support each other as, you know, the different things that all of us, you know, sort of want to try to support. And I think if you look at the list of organizations that we've supported and given money to over the years, there's, you know, a couple hundred probably that would show up. So I think when anyone's on a tear, you know, Mike McCready's been an incredible, you know, he's given so much to Crohn's and colitis, and Jeff's done so much work in Montana and Indian reservations and doing a lot of skate park stuff that's been awesome, and working with buffaloes and all sorts of different things that all of us individually sort of get touched by. And I think all of us are proud of each other's individual involvement and really try to, when there's opportunities, to support that, to do that. But
plus, it's like a way that we can educate each other. It's like, you know, it's fascinating when somebody gets behind something like you know, typically, like, you know, if Stones really believes in something, he's done the research, and on a bus trip or a plane trip, you can talk for 10 minutes and learn a lot. That's a great fringe benefit of being in this band, is the learning part.
And I think I think philanthropic stuff has kind of been built into the band from the beginning. It's sort of in our DNA that part of what we do is more than just being in a band, that we all, I think, are in touch with sort of our do-it-yourself aspect of what it takes to be in a band, and then beyond that, just there's so many other important things other than music and other than being in bands that we all want to sort of stay in touch with as well. So that's been an amazing aspect of this band, is all of us have pushed each other to kind of give more. And, you know, there's times where you have the energy for a lot of it, and there's times where you don't have the energy for much of it. You can be more insular sometimes, and that's fine, and sometimes you can really go for it and really, you know, get excited about something. And I think in the long run, in the scope of the band, that'll all be a positive, you know.
You guys, you know, it should be applauded for everything you've done. It's like amazing. You know, your commitment to so many causes. It's really, really incredible. What actually starts the songwriting process for you? Like, I can either be surfing or shaping a surfboard, and I'm continually thinking about ways that I can improve surfboards. It's like a movie that's going on in my mind all the time. What sparks a song? Or can it be a lot of things that spark a song?
I think it's rarely the same thing twice, or the same situation twice. But I tell you, it sure happens a lot quicker and efficiently if you're, you know, close to an instrument.
Right.
You know, especially if you can get a thought and immediately put it into music and then let it, you know, it's like you know, you got to put the plant in some soil before it starts growing. At least half the time writing to music that the band is, you know, presented in some kind of form or fashion to me to put words on it. That one's a little tougher because you really have to decipher what is the meaning of that music, you know, what picture is it painting, and sometimes it's easier than others. This one was a little tougher lyrically for whatever reason. I think that having been through this one, I feel like there's another stage coming. There's another hallway of doors I can see, and I just want to, like, and I think I got the keys.
Do you have sketches of lyrics in the notebooks that you carry around that you use for songs, or do the lyrics come after you get the after the music comes from you or from other members of the band?
I might have a few things that I can at least get a line, or it's, you know, I can use one line to kind of germinate. You know, it's almost like, you know, stem cell research, where you can, you know, take a stem cell and then it kind of grows. You know, so I've got these little bits of stem cell lyrics scattered about, and I like to keep typewriters around, and maybe even 3 or 4 going at once, and I can just kind of see what's there and add to it. And then, you know, I've got a bunch of old typewriters, so they're just kind of going. And by the end, I can read things, and I don't even recognize, you know, who wrote it. It's kind of interesting the way that goes. That also comes from drinking heavily at night.
So the lyrics are always written on typewriter?
It depends. You know, if I'm on a plane. I used to bring typewriters on the plane, but I'm not a computer writer. I don't. For some reason, there's no romance in it.
Do you think it's harder to write a good song when you're happy and content rather than when you're poor and pissed off?
Well, I don't think so. I think that you know, I will always remember being poor and pissed off. And there's no shortage of instances that will piss you off or that need to be addressed. And, you know, I mean, that's kind of probably the hardest part, is not being overwhelmed, you know. And through the whole Bush administration, it was really hard to write because it was like so much that you wanted to say.
I think it's really important that musicians and actors and writers, that people who have an audience that actually listens to them and have media that listen to them, I think it's really important they actually have an opinion on things that are going on, like in this country, and also things that are going on in the world.
You know, in the old days, there was civic heroes. You know, we had Ralph Nader and we had Gloria Steinem, and now there's so much, you know, celebrity culture, which I like to think we're not really part of that. But if people are going to pay attention to it, then I think that the one positive byproduct that could come out of it is that those people were socially responsible and were able to encourage, you know, whether it's like an open-mindedness towards same-sex marriage, having opinions that at least will somehow try to create a more progressive society. So if there's a little guidance from someone you respect, even if it's just because, you know, he's written some good films or written some good music or painted some good paintings, that all of a sudden you have like an implied trust and curiosity. But that's what's frustrating, that there's not a little bit more of a grassroots movement to make our politicians that we vote in, and they're supposed to represent us, and they shouldn't be swayed by the large corporate entities that are usually, now they can donate endlessly to their campaigns. And you know, my frustration with it, and I hate to be just talking about from our position, but my frustration is that somebody else isn't taking care of these issues already, whether it's healthcare or environmental issues, or, I mean, it seems like actually this would be the role of, this is why we have government. To, you know, take care of this environmental issue, or take care of this, the needs of children, whether they're unfed or untreated for diseases that can be either treated or they could be doing more research on. And why are they asking like a rock musician who didn't even graduate high school to like help lead the charge and take care of a complex issue? That's a bad sign.
Yeah, it's How consciously do you translate some of your political ideas into songs?
Well, I think that nothing really can close somebody's mind more than something being really literal. You know, there's a few things for people to kind of unravel. I think it creates a better listening environment, and I think allowing an interpretation, because we worked on these songs for quite some time. It really feels like your brain is a hotel, and all these songs, they're like kind of tenants. And at some point, You know, they've been there for so long and they're really not paying rent and they're kind of trashing the place. And you turn into kind of a slumlord.
So is releasing the new album, is that enough to evict them?
Yeah, that's it. It is. Yeah, now it's like all vacancy.
Yeah, like from a surfing career point of view, that when you're competing in an event, you're in your own little world. It's just you and the other competitors in the water. You're not really aware of what's going on the land. There can be 100 people watching, or there can be 10,000 people watching. Like when I've been at your shows and other concerts, it must be a phenomenal feeling being on stage for that 2.5 hours.
It must.
You keep doing it.
Well,
it doesn't. It's just you didn't really jump at it. Like, yeah, it does.
It's just not something that you can hang on to. It's very, mercurial, the feeling. You can have a life based in, humility, that the fact that it just doesn't stick, And in some ways, I think maybe for some people that they need to kind of keep refilling that, or they start living off rocket fuel, because it's kind of a rocket fuel of emotion, Burns quick, burns fast, and sometimes leaves empty vessels of the person that was being fueled by it. And a crowd they can change the show. They can take it to a whole nother level. I mean, we can try on our own, but we can't kind of do it without them.
I've been at shows where the crowd can actually make or break the show.
Yeah.
It's like that reaction, that energy from the crowd seems to inspire you guys on stage.
Which is interesting, because under that logic, we should almost be paying them, or at least half.
I get asked quite a lot about surfing career highlights, and I think people actually expect you to say, like, winning a world title here or there, or winning a contest, but they actually don't figure highly. There's a lot of other things that actually come to mind. When you look back on your career, what would be the greatest thing, or the memories that you'll think you'll take from it?
Playing with these guys. The other one would probably be all the other musicians that I've gotten to play with, As a fan of music and somebody who, like, music was always, like, the most important thing.
Is it hard to strike a balance between commercialism and integrity with your songwriting and the music?
I suppose so. It's just something I guess we don't think about, but it's nice being at least accessible to where you're heard. Let's say there's a classroom, and every student in the classroom is a band. So at some point, I mean, you do want to raise your hand and be heard if you think you have an intelligent thought or something to add to the lesson or the conversation. But that's about it. Do kind of relish the idea that you can play live shows and that people will keep coming, and that you can keep sharing this experience and continuing the conversation. That's for sure. As long as we're satisfied with the art, I think that's the big challenge.
What inspired the lyrics on Mind Your Manners?
Interesting. Recently, there was a great therapist, a well-written and world-renowned therapist that said that in the future you'll probably be able to treat kind of religious fundamentalism as like it'll be seen as like a disease, and that there'll be ways to kind of it almost be like anti-brainwashing. It'll be seen as almost like an affliction. I'm not looking to make enemies, and I'm not looking to, but I think that it's, if people really did have freedom of religion, which also means freedom from religion, I think it would make less enemies. And I think we could finally progress to, because it's really such a small planet, and we are all part of the same energy, it seems. It's frustrating to one, try to understand all the complexities of what they're thinking and why they're thinking, and I believe there's morals to be learned, and there's many things to be learned on, through these books and through these beliefs and the whole thing. But it can't be at the cost of ostracizing or damning to hell a whole nother billions and billions of people. Because everybody on this planet seems to want the same things, which is, you know, healthy kids, a roof over their heads, maybe a job, and maybe a way to somehow survive. And
Yeah, good health system and
yeah.
the basics, yeah. Ed, and the lyrics on My Father's Son, what inspired those, or where did they come from?
Well, the song tended to have an aggressive nature, and you know, I didn't even know my father, so it's certainly not autobiographical.
I sort of wondered if it was.
Yeah,
or if
no,
there
he
was,
wasn't.
you know,
He
the
wasn't
touch.
even. You know, he wasn't even around long enough for me to hate him
it
like
had touched on some of it. Yeah,
But it's also it's really based on, you know, in a way it's another take on evolution, and the evolution in this case is having a certain set of genes that you were given by your the previous generation. You know, you know, they talk about cloning humans. Well, that's what we are. We are an exact. It seems like almost exactly a clone of these two people. Then it's almost usually comes out just about equal, and you're going to get some up genes, and then you're going to get hopefully some good ones, and then it's really just making decisions based on using your positive strengths, you know, and not succumbing to any of the dark up shit that might just be in your DNA and just might make you might make it more conducive to, you know, being an adulterer or being a criminal or literally being insane. So I think that's just it's a bit of a diatribe on you know, having to deal with the cards that you were dealt in a strand of DNA.
right. How life-changing has it been for you to have children?
It's certainly challenged my reclusive nature, which it was really a monument that I had worked on for, you know, decades.
Yeah.
And then, and then you just kind of have to tear that monument down. You know, they don't want a crazy dad. They don't want a obsessed, psychotic, you know, driven father. I you know, that's one regret I really don't ever want to have. And I feel like, you know, just being there as a parent, just being around is probably the best thing you can do. I mean, you can make this mistake and that mistake and the whole thing, but at least if you're there. So it's probably one of the reasons why we don't tour as much, and probably one of the reasons why it takes a little longer between records, because I think we're being good parents. That's just the sacrifice we have to make.